Season 8 is almost here, and luckily we already have a lot of info for the new patch. There are a lot of tank changes, on top of Mauga being added to the roster with new adjustments from his early release during BlizzCon. He definitely looked more on the weak side, even more so when seeing how Roadhog hasn't done too hot, also suffering from a ginormous hitbox and weakness to anti-heals. So many changes have already been revealed, especially for the tanks. And if you're looking to grind out your tanks for the upcoming patch, or even work on your favorite heroes like Tracer and Baptiste, who are also receiving some massive changes, use the link in the description to get access to a GameLeap membership. There are loads of guides already available, with fresh knowledge for Roadhog and some great courses for running Iliadi, the second most recent hero to the game. Check it out if you're interested and enjoy the video. Let's start off big with one massive change to everyone. You will now only retain a max of 15% ultimate charge when switching your heroes. It used to be a nice quarter amount of 25, but 15 is definitely tanking that number down. This change is intended to fix the problem of people counter swapping too much, which is definitely a weird way of targeting the problem, but I guess I can see where they're coming from. Apparently, it's too much of an advantage to counter swap right after dying, but even though the rock, paper, scissors tank matchup is a bit annoying to deal with, it's got more to do with the hard counters between heroes in the game instead of the ultimate charge swap. It'll definitely take some time to get used to, but if you're just consistently playing one hero or just playing one of the meta picks, there will literally be zero change. No need to overreact just yet, although 25% was definitely a good change that made the game more fluid when swapping things around, looking for the best comp you can win with. I'm definitely more on the 25% side, but it is more of a testing change, so we'll see how it goes. Moving on to the tanks, for Roadhog, no news is kind of good news. The rework was definitely successful, and there are no changes coming soon for him. The second adjustment hotfix to his breather definitely eased him over the starting line for actually being considered a viable tank. But obviously, since I'm phrasing it like that, he's still got a long way to go to match up well into other tanks, and more importantly, tank farming DPS and debuffing supports. Mauga coming into the game will also match him up pretty well since his close range damage exceeds Hog's, and with all those crits you can farm, it's going to be hard for Hog to actually threaten the kill outside of his ultimate. But before moving on to other tanks, let's go over the changes we expect from Mauga himself that have also been revealed previously. He's looking much sharper in the Roadhog's new style. The devs have been testing giving his 650 health pool some armor to work with, synergizing well with his lifesteal ability to keep his armor top to the max. Starting with 150 armor of that total 650, even that much would help him out massively. But the real tanks that do work with their armor usually have upwards of 200, like D.Va and Reinhardt. Luckily, he's also getting the benefit of a reduced head hitbox, one of the biggest weaknesses for tanks. Just imagine having Orissa's moon-sized head hitbox on a tank that doesn't have all that damage mitigation, like Wrecking Ball or even Ramattra in his Omnic form. You can't really do anything when you're getting lasered down every time you peek, so at least Mauga's getting that good treatment early. One of Mauga's weaknesses also comes down to his overrun ability. It was best used for surviving by running away instead of engaging. Just 30% damage reduction doesn't make you much stronger when you're running headfirst into the enemy team. That number is being buffed upwards to maybe even 50%, making it way more viable to engage with or even just run away again and make sure that you survive. Actually, because Mauga has such a long effective range, running and gunning isn't a bad way to play the newest tank, and those guns are also being adjusted themselves. They're already looking to be the strongest part of his kit, so it's even nicer to see adjustments coming to his spread while shooting both guns, the one thing holding him back from mowing down anyone in 20 meters range. And he still kinda does do that in a way. We don't know as much about these changes as the more confirmed overrun and health pool changes, but it's safe to say they'll make him better, even though they've already proven to be a solid new addition to the top guns in the game, if you're just considering primary and secondary fire damage output alone. But enough speculation, here's the actual hard news about the rest of the cast, and some of these are pretty crazy. Doomfist is receiving a massive buff with another bonus effect during his ultimate. Now you don't only regenerate your cooldowns faster, but you also heal yourself at a rate of 75 heals per second. Combined with the shields you get upon landing hits, this is a nice change to make Meteor Strike more explosive and also more sustainable. Doom's ult is strong for sure, but more weaker in impact than other similar ultimates, but he makes up for it by charging the ultimate pretty fast. Now he'll charge the ultimate slower by a small amount for that extra healing bonus. It's a buff and a nerf in one, but the trade-off seems pretty good to make your ultimate that much stronger. To make more use out of that new ultimate value, make sure to commit harder to the engage. You're now rewarded with bonus health if you push hard, instead of just using it to escape. There's a way bigger incentive now to stay in the fight, which definitely lends itself to more clutching. Definitely a solid change, and makes an already strong Doomfist more reliable when it comes to the big ultimate fights. Next up is Ramattra, who is barely mentioned, but has some pretty crazy changes that could actually make him a lot more viable. His Nemesis form is obviously already great, and it's a pretty unique ability with its piercing long-range punches, but Ram's Omnic form is actually being buffed, making him less useless while waiting for your next form cooldown. Not only is he getting 100 of his health changed to armor, but he's also getting a buff on his staff damage, increasing the projectile speed and damage. This is the type of change that can radically change a hero's damage output, and no fall off and increased damage on a beaming weapon like Ram's can make him feel more like a robot lasering wizard instead of the battling behemoth guy he's usually known for. It's actually super big to make Ram's Omnic form stronger, since he really suffered from literally only being able to deal sneeze level poke damage without his beefcake mode. Now that he can threaten more kills and more pressure at a long range and in general, he can bait people in to punish with his Nemesis form, and that's just one of the new options for the playstyle that comes with the buff neutral. The final tank change is also a small but meaningful buff, which is that Winston now does full damage to armor. His Tesla cannon no longer accounts for that damage reduction. This buff intends to make him slightly better to tank matchups, since that's where he massively loses. Now that he can do full damage to armor, he'll actually help a lot more when you actually have to focus the tank for once, since going for the backline isn't always possible. For the actual number being changed, Winston used to do 42 DPS to armor, and now he does a normal 60 DPS, an 18 DPS change, but for Winston it means a lot. But what I'm seeing in this change isn't a better matchup into other tanks. Winston still should never really be playing for that, but now he's got a bit more effectiveness into Brig, not only in her normal form but also her rally. Brig's rally is strong, but she's also the weakest target on her team during it. She's the only hero who doesn't receive the consistent overhealth that her team does. She only heals herself for her 15 inspire per second, but she at least gets 100 extra armor. But that extra armor now doesn't get reduced for Winston, making him a lot more viable at forcing down the damage and keeping it Brig checked while she's trying to push with her rally. It's definitely a one hero matchup situation, but with how common Brig is used to counter Winston, the matchup is pretty massively affected. That's it for the tanks, and luckily 2 dive heroes are receiving buffs, even though Wrecking Ball is still being massively ignored. But now let's move on to Sombra, still fresh off of a bit of a floppy rework. It seems like the move right now for Blizzard is to put power back into her EMP. It now locks out abilities for 3 seconds instead of the previous 1.5, although still with the damage reduced from 30% to 25%. Tanks and even some squishies will still shrug off that ability damage easily, but an extra 1.5 seconds is definitely more lucrative. EMPing any support combo now basically allows you a free kill almost no matter what. 3 seconds is a long time instead of the previous 1.5. Sombra alone can deal at least 400 damage in that time. 3 seconds is also the maximum amount of time you can fire your gun for before it runs out of bullets. On top of the bonus virus damage, it can help against pesky supports that are still doing their best to heal even while being hacked. Some of the more bulky tanks will also still be fine, but 3 seconds is a long time without any cooldowns at all, and tanks are big targets. This change isn't likely to make Sombra players that much better, since all of them I know just aren't in voice chat, and they always use EMP while the rest of the team is dead. But I can definitely see her being picked up more in pro play, and if we're not careful, she might become a top level must pick again and inevitably get trickled down into ranked. Sombra is one of the most up and down heroes in terms of how viable she's been, so hopefully this time they've got her more to a balanced level. Soldier 76 has caught some attention for being too good of a pick. Corny in my opinion, but that's how it's got to be for the most grounded and chill hero in the game. He's still receiving a pretty restrained nerf though. His healing station now has a longer cooldown. It was already 15, but now 3 extra seconds have been packed on top of that to make a big fat 18 seconds. That's almost as long as Lifeweaver's life grip. It's not ideal, but I can definitely see how trying to engage Soldier with his healing station can be frustrating, and now it's more rewarding to successfully engage twice in a fight. It won't make him worse, and thankfully they're not changing any of his damage numbers. He'll stay roughly the same, just maybe you'll have to hang out with your supports a little longer after blowing your first heal. The third DPS and also a hit scan too is Tracer. Now whenever Tracer is mentioned in the patch notes, something crazy is up. She's such a balanced hero, so there's gotta be a big reason to change her. She's either going sky high or bob low, and this time it's sky high with a buff to 6 damage per bullet. It's been 5.5 for a long time, because of a lot of spaghetti code in the system in early Overwatch 2 that affected her fall off and spread, making her more precise and able to deal more damage. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but the bug made her better. That's it. Now that it's fixed, it's back to 6 damage. Without weird explanation, it's actually less clear if she's sky high just yet, but to be clear, you can do more damage in one clip than before, and that's the most important metric for Tracer. 240 damage clips are back, and I know I'll be happy to see more Tracer instead of the duller spam mirrors that have shown up lately. And finally, a couple support changes to wrap things up. Just 2 for now, but both nerfs. Brig is actually being too strong, thanks to her whipshot buff, although honestly she was already a good pick before it was even considered as a meaningful change. It's being reverted, so she's back to 70 damage, 10 damage given and taken away just like that. No more one-shot combo against 200 HP targets, but that wasn't really happening anyway. This isn't looking like it's going to change anything about her pick rate, as long as players know that her whipshot value doesn't depend on that extra little damage bonus. The bigger value is the knockback. And I'm finally glad to say that Baptiste has received yet another nerf, and good for me, it's an ammo reduction just like I was hoping for in the previous video of patch notes we need. Christmas has come just a bit early. His ammo is down to 36, just for the damaging bullets, and it will definitely tone down his damage output by a nice bit. 45 bullets just gives you a crazy ton of free damage before the fight starts and even during it, without sacrificing your healing potential. And with only a 1.5 second reload, it's totally being too effective for way too long. 36 bullets can still net you 900 damage before reloading. Real intense tank pressuring damage that's still an option for BAP, but slowly and surely isn't a bad way of going about these changes, because even though BAP's definitely way too overpowered, making him awful just wouldn't feel right. He's still a fun part of the game and enables a lot of cool plays and teamwork with his abilities. Seeing him nerfed to the ground isn't the goal. That's it for the upcoming patch notes for Season 8. Let me know in the comments what patch notes you're looking forward to most, or even what you think they missed. It's a bit light for the damage and support changes, but at least the supports are used to this kind of neglect, unfortunately. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.